Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday, and welcome to another episode of Tea and Coffee with Paula and
Jay. And look, I'm healing.
Band-Aid is off.
I'm starting to heal. I am like the Terminator, though. It did heal pretty quickly. There's not much left, but maybe next
Rise
week.
of the robots. My
Maybe-
goodness.
Maybe next week we'll be hatless. What do you
Yes,
think?
maybe. Well, it's been saving me having to get the tufts down of your bed head
The tufts.
on the side.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty bad.
Oh, yeah. That tough. Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Nice to see you all. Have you here again. And thanks to everybody who's joining the show, both on Locals, Facebook, X, YouTube. It is growing. The numbers are going. Our show almost every single week is getting a lot more viewers. So thank you for that. And on that note, go ahead and share it. And make sure that you become a member at the Living Show.
Oh, yeah. I was like, what to share?
You can always
All right,
share the
here we
show.
go.
She got a button.
I got 2 buttons. There we go. So you can go ahead and subscribe. You go to thelevingshow.com, and then you can also join. So you can become a member in Locals, but then you can also become a supporter, and it's the supporter where you would pay a monthly or an annual fee to get the extended version of the show.
Yep, because after the show, we usually kick back for 15, sometimes 30 minutes with our Locals only supporters and have some more conversations. And also your chat. Paula definitely watches all the chats from Locals. So if you're in there, and the lively discussions in there.
Yeah, so anytime you see me distracted on the screen, it's because I'm looking at my laptop. I'm reading all the chats in all our platforms and also in our Locals as well. So yeah.
But Locals gets pretty lively, and we don't put it on the screen. So you have that little bit of privacy.
Yeah.
Like it's not in the little corner there. Ooh, let's try and get that. Doop. It's not there. It's private. It's lively, and some really good people there.
Oh, excellent. Well, we got good people on all of our platforms, but yes, we have good people.
She hasn't taken Sales 101 yet, so working on this one. Really good people in Locals, especially the supporters.
I was an insurance broker in my former life. And what I loved was that the first brokerage that I worked at was saying, we don't sell insurance, we tailor the policy for our clients. And having that mentality of, no, it's not sales, that's always been my mentality. So I'm not always like, got to get that sale, which maybe sometimes I should, but I just don't. It's more of a case of, what can we do for you, which is what I prefer.
Well, that's nice, but that doesn't run the generator. So we definitely need support. This is the only way we do it. We don't have sponsors. We don't do donations. We provide more value. So that would be the chat in the extended episode for the supporters on Locals. And if you want, you can do that. And that would be a great way to... you don't have to show your support. It's just a way to help support the show. Yeah. And it's the only way we do it. There is no government funding for us. My wife knows. And we don't take on sponsors. We've been approached several times. We just don't want to do that because we want to keep this news based. We want to keep it political. We want to make sure there's zero strings attached. The only people we want to focus on are the audience and getting the truth to them.
Yes. As I was reading our Locals chat. But no, it's true. We like to see... we'd love to have you join us in our Locals, support us that way. However, we also really appreciate the share and the likes and that type of thing too. And just turning up. It's great. Thank you.
The growth is happening. More and more people are showing up every morning to join us live and then sharing it out throughout the day. The numbers are going up. So I appreciate that all very, very much. And this is also how we go to events like the AGM for the UCP. And there will be other events in the near future that we're going to cover and go to, and interviews that we're going to bring to you. Now, we originally had MLA Jason Stephan scheduled, and I had talked to him on, I think it was Saturday, and I confirmed with him. He said, yeah, nothing's going to stop me. I didn't hear back from him yesterday when I reached out to him with the link. That doesn't mean he's not coming. He's got the link. But we also have Nadine Wellwood joining us today.
Yes, always a great one.
If Jason joins us, that will be a fantastic combination because there's a lot going on since the AGM at the UCP headquarters HQ. Not necessarily out in the streets, inside those closed doors. There's a lot going on. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jason was up all night working with the party and is just tired. So we'll see how that goes. And then the same deal with Rob Anderson. Again, confirmed on Saturday he was going to join us. He's the chief of staff for Daniel Smith since Sunday. Some things have changed. We'll get into that. They're very busy over there. And he didn't get back to me again either. So I've had Mitch Sylvester. He'll be coming on tomorrow morning, and possibly Jeffrey Rath as well. We'll see if Rob Anderson gets back to me. If so, then he's a scheduled guest. And if not, we have Mitch going to be joining us, and possibly Jeff. If Jeff doesn't join us Friday, because it's another court date for the
Exactly,
APP question. And by the way, look at your thing there.
Oh my
Another
goodness.
question for the APP court date. He'll definitely join us on Monday. And yeah, she's in the chat and she's in charge of our backdrop.
Which I forgot to update, and now there it is.
They didn't see it though.
No.
This is our first shot of that.
Oh, is it?
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
So yeah, so that's a quick update about the show today. Nadine Wellwood, possibly Jason, Stephan, yeah, Stephan, MLA will be joining us, and we'll have a conversation about what's going on with the UCP since the AGM. I can tell you it's a lot. What's Martin's update?
Martin's update is, we did more of our volunteer thing for the Buck Creek Hall. We updated all the signs to let them know that.
Ooh, what's coming?
Yeah, what's coming. So, folks, December 8th, we have our Buck Creek meeting at 7 p.m. On the 13th, we've got
That's the hall committee meeting. Yeah. So everybody's welcome to come and check it out. Yeah. And if you are a member, then you can participate in the voting there, but it's open to all.
And if you want to become a member, you're a local resident, it's $1 for an annual membership. So, and then on the 13th, we have a local market, Nature's Market. There you go. There's your shout out, Martin. So Nature's Market is going to be holding an event on December 13th at Buck Creek Hall. Hopefully that's going to be a monthly occurrence. And then the 18th is their game night starting at 6 p.m. Oh, and the market is 11 a.m. till 4 p.m.
And we'll be there. And maybe somebody from the North Pole will be there too. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Sometimes travel is difficult and we'll see what can happen. But the 18th, he doesn't use roads, but we'll be there. So Paula and I and the kids will hang out there. JJ's selling some stuff. I'll be selling some stuff. So it'll be a nice little way to get to know our community, participate in it, and help kick off our local market. Hopefully it's going to be a regular thing there.
Yeah, I hope so. And that's where you can get your Telolicious products, which I'm a huge fan of. So yeah, we'll be there.
We got to get some honey out there and some other nature products. I think there's some good vendors around that.
We've got a honey. There's got a honey vendor. They've got some woman who does like crabapple drinks, which is good for the digestive system and things like that. So no, there's homemade, homegrown product.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do hope it's a regular thing because I don't want to keep changing that sign. I don't mind just updating the date. That would be fine. But if it's the 3 regular things every month, we just update the date once a month, and that will work for us.
Yeah, like you said, it took us a couple of hours yesterday because we've been holding off because it's outside. That's 4 sides that we've got to do at 2 different signs, and we have to climb a fence and go up a ladder, and so we were waiting for milder weather. So we got it done yesterday afternoon. Good job.
So if you're driving down the 22 near the 780 or the 616, you'll see it there on the west side. West side. And then if you're in Buck Creek itself, right by the hall, you'll see the sign there. So check it out. And the hall has the times, so you'll know what time to be there.
So Becky, no, not every Saturday. So they're hoping once a month to be at Buck Creek Hall. However, every Saturday, the Nature's Market will be at some place. So it's either going to be at a location on the 616 or it could be in Buck Creek Hall. So they are trying it. So this weekend, they're on the 616. So if you're interested in coming down to Breton, let me know and I'll give you the address.
Yep. And the 13th will be fun, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And if you want to buy some cards and games from JJ, he's saving up for something. He actually told me yesterday what it is.
Yeah, he's well, for me, I'm happy because he wants to clear out a lot of his jigsaw puzzles and games and things like that we have. He's getting rid of his Pokemon cards. So if you're interested in Pokemon, my kid's got a bunch of stash of them he wants to get rid of. But yeah, he was trying to save money for a cat.
All he told me was, I've done my research, I've looked into the pricing, I know what I need to get, and he even offered me 10% of all his sales to help him get to places to do sales. I'm like, I'm your dad, I'll do that for free. But he didn't tell me what it was, and lo and behold, he wants to get a cat. And we did have a conversation with him. It can't be an inside cat.
Correct.
We don't have that much space. We really don't. But it could be an outdoor cat, and we actually could use a couple. So if anybody's in the Brazeau County area has a couple outdoor cats that they want to rehome, we may have a place for them.
Yeah, for example, we'll take good care of them. We've got the shelter. They'll have company with the dogs. But yeah, ideally, for me, I'm a dog person. I'm not a cat person. So the one time we did have a cat, his job was to catch mice, and Taffy did well. He earned his stripes there. But yeah, we're looking for a mouser, but obviously we have 2 little boys who just love them to death. take care.
And I'm more of the cat person.
Yeah.
I definitely don't mind cats at all. I just want an outdoor one because we just don't have the space for
I
it.
agree.
But yeah, I'd love to have a working cat, a couple of them out there. We got a nice warm place for them already picked out. JJ will be happy. So if there's someone out there that has a couple barn cats that they're looking to rehome, we'll give them a nice place.
Yeah, for sure. We'll take care of them. Add it to my plate of things to feed.
Actually, you don't really have to do much for them. You really don't have. We already have the water worked out for the animals, so that'll be fine. And as long as Charlie behaves himself, because he likes to chase small things that have a heartbeat, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Maybe a cat with a little bit of gusto already that can take on a dog.
Yeah. No, I actually think it'll be fine because once we teach them, let them play together, cuddle, keep them together, I'm sure he'll be fine.
All right. So on that note, that's the Levine Homestead update.
Yeah.
Yep. And let's go ahead and see. We got a little tea and coffee logo up there. There's always something. It feels like we're missing. But right now we're good.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into the news because there's a lot. Okay. There's a lot, especially late last night. My wife was listening to me on the phone with several people, and she was just, smirking and like, told you so type of face on her. And me, I don't know what color pillow it would be when your leader starts to let you down and then you find out and you're sad about it. I don't know what color pillow that is. It's not a rainbow pill, I know that. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So let's go ahead and get you up here. So first of all, thanks again to Wiretap Media. So the Slovak European Union Council member Milian Mazarek calls out the climate change scam. Stop with your green scam. You're lying to the people. Nobody's saving the planet here. This is one of the things I've spoken about many, many times, even when I was a young guy, and the whole of the ozone and acid rain and global warming and all of those things were hitting us all at the same time. I thought, oh boy, we really need to make changes. Stop using aerosol, and we got to shut down industry in the U.S. because they're creating acid rain in Canada. Turns out all of this stuff never happened.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, globe didn't warm; it actually started to cool. So they changed it to climate change and all this other stuff. So it's starting to, the narrative is starting to break down. Several places are talking about it now because it simply didn't happen. And I think Greta Thunberg was one of the best advocates for exposing the scam because she said we're going to be underwater in 5 years. It got all the youth behind her, and 5 years later, she just kind of went to Gaza and started to do other things. Either case, I'm calling this the world's greatest and most long-running scam is the one on climate. Those of all those who still fall for it and push it, how dare you? Now, there's one post in here I want to bring up because it's just hilarious because it's true. One of the oldest traditions, the government protecting us from climate change. If you look back in history, they would sacrifice to the sun god and the weather god and the rain god and all these other gods. They would be doing things on Earth in order to try impact the weather. At least they believed it. I think this has been debunked by now. Do we need to sacrifice humans to the sun god in order to get good crops for the year? Have we kind of moved on to weather observation? And some people say possibly weather modification. But in other words, humans aren't responsible for the globe's weather, never have been, but tribes and governments and leaders have convinced us, including sacrificing us completely in order to try to appease those sun gods. So we're still doing that. But at least more people are talking about it, and we can hopefully move on to other more important pressing issues. All right. So no, I didn't move to the CBC in any way, shape, or form. As I told you during the live broadcast at the AGM, I was interviewed by the CBC for my work there. Also got a couple quotes out of me about our audience, all of you guys. And frankly, I think he was fair. I don't think he didn't twist my words or use them against me.
Which is nice.
Yeah, it's a good start. But CBC covered the UCP AGM and highlights the Levine show. So kind of pleased about that. CBC's analysis of the UCP AGM is out, and they've mentioned both me and the Levine show. The fact that CBC is now talking openly about Alberta's independence conversations tells you how far this movement has come and how impossible it is to ignore. So there's a link to the article there. I'll pull it up. Read through it. Okay, so it's not flattering towards separation because it's certainly CBC has an angle on this one. but it does go through in depth about what happened at the AGM, including the Jeff Rath speech. Here he is right here. And it was fair because what he said in the article here was it was a standing ovation. Here we go. Raise your hands. A vast majority of the room did, with sustained howls and cheers. That's true. So they're reporting that part true. And if you go through the rest of the articles talking about the United Conservative Party, how they were approached with some boos and cheers for various things, roughly 4,200 people were there. And then they go into talking about me here because I was doing 5,000 live streams at a time. And this CBC reporter was looking at the stream as it happened. So it was pulling up comments from it and then did a little picture of me there. Including me in that article, and it was kind of interesting because he quoted me too. So here's my quote, talking about Danielle Smith. They support her, but they think they need to give her a new mandate. I told CBC, and the new mandate would have to include something like independence from Canada. Because at that AGM, people were supportive of Danielle Smith, but wants her to push hard on independence. And she said, if you give me an independence mandate, I would follow it. We're going to have to correct that now because I think that whole position changed overnight. But anyways, thank you to Jason something. What was his name again? It's at the top here. At first, we didn't get on very well because he wanted to tell me where I should sit. Markusoff. Yeah. So thank you very much for taking the time and not twisting what I said in a negative way, but certainly did have an angle to that piece. It was against separation. So go ahead and check that out.
Yep, links in the chat.
Yep, thank you for sharing that out. And kind of weird because that whole media table, like I told you guys as I was doing the stream, and then when we did some coverage on Monday about it, I was obviously the black sheep in that group. Okay, black sheep. I want to make sure that people hear those words correctly. They don't come up with something else. Black sheep. Because I was doing a live broadcast, I was chatting, people were coming up talking to me throughout, and the rest were just on their laptops, just tapping away, just doing their thing. And at least one CBC reporter that was masked up did not like the idea that I was talking on a stream. She went and moved and huffed and puffed and smelled her own breath for the rest of the day. But I wasn't deterred, and I wasn't going to conform to what they wanted me to do, which was to just be quiet and just take notes. And I'm pleased that I was able to bring 5,000 more people to that convention to check out what was going on and share their opinions too, openly, which they did.
Yes.
So thanks to everybody who did that. It was noticed by the CBC.
Well, yeah, because also the fact that we had the chat on the screen, he was able to actually see what was
at first, when I saw the quotes, I'm like, was he looking over my shoulder? I'm like, oh yeah, wait a minute, it's on the stream. So he actually tuned in. He was one of the 5,000, and he was grabbing quotes from there. It could have been worse. I saw some quotes in there that would have been worse, but he got the general idea. People want independence. They're distrusting of Danielle Smith. And I think a lot of you were ahead of the curve before I was, and we'll get there in a moment. All right, so Jeff Rath highlighted, and here we go. This is what we're getting into to talk about. So on a French CBC station, and I cover this a little bit more further up on our timeline here, in French, en français, released on December 3rd, but recorded on the 27th of November. So she knew this before the AGM started. She did this interview, but I guess they withheld it until after the AGM itself was completed. Radio Canada, en français, Danielle Smith says she will campaign against a referendum on independence, a sovereign independence referendum. And she knew this when I asked her the question, because this was recorded before then. She certainly didn't say yes or no to me, but she already gave a soundbite to the CBC, who was waiting to release it till after the AGM. So that shows a lot of cooperation on everybody's part there. And this is the same thing we saw with the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights at the last AGM, what was shared at the AGM was not the one that was being brought forward by Danielle in the legislature. That was Bill 24, which was a very different version. Really upset all the people that thought we were debating and talking about the Black Hat Bill of Rights. So there was a bait and switch, and it looks like not so much a bait and switch, but more of a hiding the truth, because she didn't share this at all in any of her speeches and any of the questions, other than cutting off the mic from Jeffrey Rath, this wasn't shared. And this was also part of my question to her. So she didn't share that either. And this came out after. So, of course, there was a lot of phone calls and stuff going around yesterday about this. And so when this was happening, I posted this, and then I have an updated post coming up shortly here. I've shared my theory several times. Danielle Smith may be positioning herself to be prime minister. I am not alone on that theory. There's a lot of people that think that her ambition is to be prime minister. Poilievre tossed her under the bus over the MOU, and it could be because she's gaining ground across Canada as the only real opposition to Carney. If Pierre loses his leadership review, there is a very high possibility he steps down and Smith goes after the CPC leadership. I don't have any information other than my gut feeling. Stay tuned. So at this time, I have no confirmation out of the UCP or Danielle that this is her plan. So I'm just trying to read the tea leaves. And I also had somebody kind of give me a little bit of heck in my comments for posting my gut feeling. So I just want to highlight, I'm welcome to my opinions, just like you all are. And what I'm doing here by highlighting that this is not a report is to let you know this is my opinion. This is what I think. This hasn't been confirmed. I don't have sources on this. So I'm going to continue to make posts like this because I too have opinions. And this is my opinion. I'm sharing it. So what are your thoughts? Other than I told you so.
Okay, no, she Trudeau'd us. We got called French minority with unacceptable views in French. And she basically told us in French that, yeah, you're not getting independence while I'm in charge.
Well, she's not going to support it. Whether we get it or not is still up to us. So, but she's going to campaign against it.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, she did it in French because it wouldn't have been wonderful if it didn't come out until much later. But no, it came out right away. We got wind of it. And I'm disappointed. She's not. Oh no, I think she's fully
and by the
aware.
way, I think it came out in French because she wants to show that she can speak French.
Oh yeah,
which a prime minister would need.
Yes, but what a thing to reveal in French.
No, I got English. It. A couple birds died on this one with the stone for sure.
Yeah. So.
And we were kind of highlighting this too because why was she doing this carbon stuff, carbon capture, carbon tax, net zero by 2050? Why was she making those concessions and commitments? And I said on one of our shows with Nico, and Nadine was on there and others were on there, is she trying to position herself for the East? This is the Toronto-Ottawa Valley type of stuff that she's talking about and working on. Is she trying to say, look, I am greenish, I am conservative? Is she trying to talk to the East Coast conservatives? Sounds like
I have no doubt. I think she would represent Alberta better than those before her.
Okay, so that's where I was going to go with this. If she did become PM, well, it's the prime minister who could build a pipeline. Yeah. It's the prime minister who can bring forward and revoke legislation that's no good. Like, could this be, and this is the one question I had for Nadine, actually, and she'll be on, could she be thinking bigger than Alberta? But here's the problem. This will require Alberta to stay in.
Yeah. And I think if she's thinking bigger, it's for herself, not for the benefit of Alberta.
Yeah, there's a lot that echo that sentiment too. Yeah.
That's my blunt 2 cents. The greater good for Alberta would not be with us staying the way things are within Canada.
Sure. But let's say we win the referendum. Fine. We know what path we're on. Let's say we lose the referendum. Would it be better to have Danielle Smith in the PM's office as after we lost that?
I would hope so. However, different word for but. At the end of the day, look at what she's already trying to, I don't want to say pander to, but compromise with. It's still things that we don't want within Alberta. The carbon. Right.
No, 100%. But that is, and I'm just kind of maybe speaking out of turn, but that is how you get Toronto. But if she's talking Castle Law and she's talking no more gun grabs and this kind of stuff, and she can bring that into Ottawa and get it done, then we'll be pleased. If we're stuck in Canada.
If she's prime minister, she's still got to get to be leader of the party. I mean, I think that's more feasible. I think people would vote for
Right. I'm not saying she will be. I'm saying if she goes down this path and this happens and this happens and this happens, will it actually be a benefit?
Yeah. So with her being official opposition, I don't think we're going to achieve anything. I think it'll still be no different than if she was than PA. I still think they're not going to
I
achieve
personally
anything.
think it's a big mistake. I think she should have focused on Alberta. She should stop thinking about being a PM if that is what's going on, and she should have just focused on Alberta.
Oh, Paula's mic up. Thank you, Martin.
Paula's mic up. Oh yeah, my mic went up because I did a guest thing. Let me turn mine down a bit. That's right. I have to turn it up.
Thank you, Martin. Our sound guy.
Okay, let's see if that's better, Mark, because I went down. I never touched your volume level, but I did mine on that one interview that's coming out later.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks, Martin. Anyways, back to this. If her ambition is to be PM, that's bad for Alberta right now.
Yeah.
It's not going to help. And I don't think the UCP membership or the MLAs or the caucus or the cabinet are going to like that. Oh, there's Jason. We do got Jason.
Great.
That's fantastic. So we'll have him on in 4 minutes. As we continue this particular conversation, I think it's perfect that he's here because we don't know what's going on in there and what is. All right. So breaking news out of Calgary, Pastor Derek Raymer has been arrested. So if you look into this, he was given some conditions on his sentencing, and one of them was to write an apology to, I think it was a librarian who was trying to host a trans story time. This is what it's all about. He was standing up against that. This is why he's in court and got a criminal conviction. And one of his conditions was to write an apology letter to her, and he has not. He came out a few days ago talking to reporters and providing the heads up that he wasn't going to write that apology letter. He doesn't think he needs to apologize, and he can't force him. So he turned himself in yesterday, and there he is being cuffed and brought in. So it's good to see Nadine and Jason here. So we're going to have a fantastic conversation shortly as we just finish up the news here. Thanks for both of you to be here. So I'm just highlighting here that I don't think this is okay. And thank you to Arthur Pulowski and Chris Dacey for bringing this information to us.
I find it interesting writing a letter. What is he, 10? Because that's the type of thing we did.
An apology letter.
We get our kids to do.
Yeah, and he said, no, I'm not going to apologize for my beliefs. And this is an attack on beliefs because he definitely doesn't believe that this should be happening to children. It should be exposed to children. And he's not alone. This is not a minority or fringe issue. A lot of people support him, but the court is ordering him to do this, and he's not going to. Last little moment here, I think, before we can get to our guest. So Quebec, this is growing, folks. In 1 month, they gained 7% support, Parti Québécois. So it was only 32%. It was still high, and was now 39%. But 1 month, they grew by 7%. Parti Québécois is a separatist party for the political provincial level in Quebec, and they've gained support. And the current party that's in power is dropped down to, I think, 13 here now. Is that one of these two, 18 or 13? Anyways, they've now eclipsed the governing party. If they win this election, they're bringing forward a referendum of separation. That's their commitment. And this is heating up quite fast. This could be faster than what Alberta's moving. We'll keep an eye on this. But my post here, which a lot of people were upset about, is just facts. Alberta, the new Lega poll from Quebec shows something important. A provincial separatist party can absolutely surpass an incumbent governing party in Canada. The Parti Québécois now sits at 39%, up 7 points, while the governing party, CAQ, has fallen to 18. This isn't theory, it's happening in real time. When a sovereignty-focused party becomes the clear front-runner in a major province, it proves that separatist movements can build majority support and take establishment and overtake established governing parties. Interesting, eh? So a lot of people are upset because, no, I'm not calling for anything at this. I'm highlighting what is going on. And Alberta has gone through this before with the Reform Party on a federal level, Wild Rose on a provincial level. Alberta is absolutely prepared and can send a strong message to the governing party. And no, I'm not trying to get the NDP elected.
Split the vote came up again in the chat.
So
You're trying to split
so
the fear.
So fast. If you think little Jason having an opinion can change the political winds in Alberta, I'm flattered. But I think you're going after the wrong person. I think what you should do is talk to your current government and tell them what you think and see what happens. And that's exactly what we're about to do next.
And people are afraid to break the mold, but you're afraid you hate what the current status quo is. So
let's not get into that because that's going to be, and also some of that's manufactured. It's people following narratives. But anyways, let's go ahead and bring the actual people, because this is what we do here is we talk to primary sources. Jason Stephan, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. It's great to be here.
It is. This is quite the day for you to be here, I'll tell you.
Well, I'm grateful to be here and to talk with Albertans.
Excellent. And let's also bring in Nadine Wellwood. Good morning, Nadine. Thanks a lot for jumping on this morning.
Good morning, you guys. My pleasure. Happy to be a stand-in any day.
Always great to have you, Nadine. Always great to have you.
Yeah, with so much going on, we weren't sure, Jason, if you'd be able to make it, but we're really glad that you did. So what I want to do is I want to jump into introducing you, who you are, and why we get to hang out with you this morning.
I'm Jason Stephan. I'm MLA for Red Deer South and member of the United Conservative Party government.
So let's jump into the AGM. What did you think? So what did you think going into the AGM itself? And then what do you think about the responses, the cheers, the boos, the conversations that happened at the AGM? Let's start with what were your expectations, and then what did you see happen there?
Attending AGMs with United Conservative Party, I'll be honest, it's actually one of the highlights of my opportunity to serve. As you know, there were over 4,000 Alberta Conservatives who attended, and all of them share a love of Alberta. And all of them want freedom and prosperity for themselves, their families, and their children. And I love the fact that this was the second largest political gathering in Canadian history, only behind the one in Red Deer last year in my actual constituency. But I just love the fact that Albertans are engaged and involved. And regardless of actually which political leaning they have, I think it sets a very good example for the rest of the country. It's important as citizens to love, our jurisdiction where we live, our community, and want the best for it. It's important to have checks and balances on government. So I just think it's awesome. I loved greeting these individuals. These great people traveled from all over Alberta. Some of them, long distances. Wasn't super nice weather. They paid for their accommodation. They paid to attend. But again, I think all of them share a love of Alberta.
And one of the cool things is you're walking in the hallway. All the MLAs are walking around. You can just approach you and talk to you and have conversations, and I had several of them in the hallways. So when people came up to you, and then Nadine, I'm coming to you right next. Jason, when people came up to you to talk to you, what was primarily what they wanted to know about? Other than, thanks for the great one you did last year in your riding, what did they want to talk to you about?
Well, as I said, I think all of them share a love of Alberta. I truly feel that. I really do feel that this is a blessed land of freedom and prosperity, of great opportunity. I think there's a desire to make sure that we are able to leverage that, increase that. So that is definitely, I think the prevailing intention and desire of all the great people who attended. There's a lot of different topics. I wish, in some ways, I wish government was more quiet. But unfortunately, we live in a time where we see government playing a bigger role in our lives. And unfortunately, certainly in Ottawa, I feel very saddened actually by how much damage has been done to the country as a whole. I want to make sure that our children have the same opportunities that we had for freedom and prosperity. And it makes me very sad to see some of the damage that has occurred over a long period of time. And I was an accountant and a lawyer, tax lawyer, before I became an MLA. I think it's very sad that actually we've more than doubled our national debt in a very short period of time. For those of your listeners who are not aware, though I imagine many of them are, under Trudeau, we more than doubled the national debt. He actually added more to the debt than all of the prime ministers before him combined. That's going to be unfortunately borne by our children. And I feel very saddened about our per capita GDP dropping like a rock. compared to the US. So fortunately, I mean, Alberta is, it is the fastest skater on a slow team. I've heard that analogy. I am grateful that we do have more freedom and prosperity here, but we could be a lot better.
Yeah, it's the strongest member of an abusive family. Yeah, so it's not really great, but at least we're stronger than our neighbors. And we saw that come out with the Fraser Institute's Freedom Index. Alberta was the most free province, but compared to the US, not so free.
Yeah.
And also compared to Mexico, a little bit freer, but most free province. So Nadine, you were walking around there as well, talking to MLAs. I witnessed one of them when you're talking to Mickey Amory. And by the way, kudos, hats off to you on that one. You were not shy to hold his feet to the fire and have conversations about the MOU and some of the other work that they're doing. So what was your takeaway from the AGM, and did it live up to your expectations?
Well, first off, I mean, with respect to the conversation that I had with Mickey Avery, the whole point of these AGMs is to give people an opportunity to speak to their MLAs directly. So I'm really glad to hear, Jason talk about the fact that that is a highlight of their term, as being a part of the AGM and actually talking to people. Now, I'm going to say what he can't, obviously, or is shying away from. The topic on the floor and in the conversations primarily was Alberta independence, and or topics around Alberta independence. And I have to take my hat off to Mickey Amory as well, because he was a real trooper. I was not easy on him. I did ask really tough questions and I demanded answers, and he was a trooper. He answered the questions, gave me his opinion and thoughts, and whether I like them or not, it's a different story. But the fact that, individual people, just everyday ranchers, farmers, whether you're rural or urban, were able to kind of corner their MLAs and say, all right, I want an answer on this particular issue. And so, there were other highlights as well, of course, when the government talked and hinted around a little bit about strengthening some of the gun laws, strengthening some of the self-defense rights that Albertans have, and a few other things. I do believe that the Premier had to make some amendments to her speech on Saturday as a result of Friday, because I think that there was some shocking disbelief, I guess, a little bit, or surprise, I think, on behalf of not only the Premier, but her cabinet in the response to the MOU. So I thought this AGM was particularly interesting. I have to admit, I did just get to sit back and smile and watch quite a bit on this one. And there was definitely some entertaining spots. And I think it was some real takeaways. And I think since that time, we've heard now that Danielle Smith is going to be has definitively, she's made the call. She will not be campaigning on Alberta independence. She will be campaigning against it. So I think buckle up, folks, because I think politics in Alberta is going to get even more interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, so this came out just a couple days ago, maybe even yesterday, in French, on a French CBC interview. Danielle Smith is very clear. She'll campaign against Alberta sovereignty in the event of a referendum. That is her position. That didn't come out during the AGM itself. She kind of walked the line very carefully there, because my question to her was, if there's a referendum on independence and it comes back successful, will that be her new mandate? And she basically said, in the most polite terms, ask me when we get to that point. So Jason, as you heard there from Nadine, Friday night, Danielle came out and said, hey, MOU, what do you guys think? And it was not a positive reception. I'm sure you either were there and you heard it, or you heard about it. And she thinks Danielle may have changed her speech the next day to kind of talk less about that and more about other things like gun rights and other things that people do want and we're very supportive on. Can you give us any insight about the MOU, what your thoughts going into the AGM were about it? And did you find it surprising to get that kind of reception when it came up?
Well, I mean, I talked to my colleague, Brian Jean, who is Minister of Energy, and certainly he's quite close to the MOU. think the prior prime minister, he moved the goalpost so far, so much damage that certainly the MOU does mark, I think, a change in tone, which is positive on the merits. And objectively speaking, I think perhaps the current government recognizes the fact that we are in big trouble as a country. And one of we need to leverage off our economic competitive advantages. And certainly from a productivity perspective, our oil and gas industry is somewhere where we do have a competitive advantage. You can't migrate our oil and gas outside of Alberta. It is there, and it isn't moving, but it provides great value to our economy, both in Alberta and nationally as well. So I think that there is a forced recognition that this is actually for the best of the country as a whole. So we'll see how things might, progress. I think the current prime minister certainly is much better from what I've seen thus far than the old prime minister, but that's a very, very low bar, extremely low bar. Been quite open and just saying, like, not out of anger, but I think he was the worst prime minister that Canada's ever had by a country mile. So this new prime minister, I mean, he is an improvement, and I guess we'll see. These are good words. There is some improvement, and we'll see just how things evolve. And what was your second question? Sorry.
Were you surprised at the reception of it? Like, were you expecting the UCP members to be more supportive than they were? Because they were clearly not very supportive of it.
Well, I think that Albertans want to see action. They want to see action and results. And we do need action and results, because the path in which this country is going as a whole is not a very good path. And we are sleepwalking into a disaster if there isn't a very quick course correction. And I don't mean that. I just think objectively, we've just lost ground so badly from a standard of living, from our per capita GDP. I just feel saddened actually about the self-inflicted wounds that this country has inflicted. Not only on Alberta, but actually as a whole. It's very sad.
Heater. Okay, sorry about that. Got distracted by our heater here. Now, Jason, sorry. When you're saying that, Carney is a little bit better than the other guy, I do want to remind you, Carney was kind of behind the other guy, maybe just in the shadows a little bit more than he is now. And it does seem like, I think the only positive that we can kind of pull out of the Carney is he might be more aligned with his interests. Brookfield, they may have some capital interest in more pipeline, or at least a development or carbon capture and these other projects. Is that where you think his motivation might be coming from? Not necessarily representing the Liberal Party and what they want, but more interest in representing his interests, which could open the door to some of the things that Albertans want?
I don't really look into what his motivations are. I guess he can answer them for themselves, but I want to see what the revealed action is. And are we going to leverage off one of the great economic natural competitive advantages that we have in Canada, or are we going to continue to be hostile to it, hold it back, and undermine it?
Okay, so let me toss that quick. Oh, sorry. Continue, Jason.
No, I think that's fine. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So Nadine, let me toss the same question to you, because what Jason's laying out here is, hey, we're getting somewhere with this guy. We couldn't with the other guy. Some of it is good, but we also see some of it is not so good. So what are your thoughts there? Do you think Carney has his own motivations? You've read his book, or at least tried to. It's a hard one to read. But he definitely has stuff like carbon capture in there, carbon tax, industrial carbon tax, all this stuff is in there.
Yeah, Mark Carney is a green zealot. And if we think that we're going to get anything really meaningful out of this MOU, I would actually be very shocked. Carney was behind Justin Trudeau. He was an advisor. He was the one who gave him a lot of the advice. And I will agree that he is definitely more eloquent and charismatic than Trudeau. But we've replaced the puppet with the puppet master. And as somebody who works in finance, I'm very, very familiar with Brookfield. I'm very familiar with the economics and productivity and all of these things. Nothing has really changed, except now we have a more sophisticated individual at the helm, and he knows how to wordsmith a document. So even like the budget, to your point, Jason, Stephan, we have a $78.3 billion deficit. And, deficits are become very problematic when you have a country that has, pretty much no productivity, and we have policies and regulation that are scaring business investment away rather than attracting it, which he seems to think that for some reason this MOU is going to attract business and give people confidence. It's actually not giving anybody any confidence in the economy. And the MOU itself commits Alberta. Here is my concern with this MOU. And I think people in the audience on Friday and Saturday, they see through this. Like, this is not the same people who show up to AGMs as even 6, 7, 8 years ago. It's a completely different audience. And they're engaged and they're sophisticated. And, for Brian, Jean, and those guys, maybe they're a little bit too close. They need to spend a little bit more time, I think, out talking to people again, because, the response that they got, in my opinion, wasn't shocking, but you could see it very plainly on their faces that they were very surprised. So the MOU has committed Alberta really to take the first steps on this carbon capture and methane by April 1st. And then there's some other commitments by July 1st. And the reality is very simple. We were talking about standard of living. We were talking about how we are lagging behind the US. This is going to hurt the lower and middle class Albertan the most by increasing that from $95 a ton to the $130 a ton, which is what's proposed. Not only is it going to scare business away, it is going to make our businesses less competitive, and it is going to hurt Albertans, the lower income. So by increasing that, it's basically flowing through a tax from, the producer right down into the consumer's hands. And I mean, by a 37% increase, if that original producer, that's 37% there. Now, let's say it touches 3 or 4 people along the way before it gets into the consumer's hands. All their costs have gone up. So now they've got to increase their costs. So by the time it reaches the consumer, this is truly going to hurt. And I'll tell you, maybe somebody making $150,000 a year, an extra $350, $500 a year is not going to be a big deal. But for those who are already lined up at food banks, who are already trying to figure out how they're going to keep the heat on and food on the table, this is going to be a significant increase in their cost of living, and it's going to hurt them the most. So this is something I think MLAs need to be having the conversation around, because if you're truly there to help Albertans, these are things that you need to talk about. And Mark Carney has proved nothing with this MOU. He's put the onus on Alberta to take the first steps, and I would throw it back at him. Like I said, Danielle Smith should have taken a match to this, in my opinion, rather than put ink on it.
Okay, and yeah, Paula is very in agreement with you there, Nadine. So Jason, thank you so much for being here, because this is kind of one of the things we need to have is conversations with MLAs about these concerns, and having the conversation with the public, I think, is a great step in the right direction. Now, you actually have 3 hats that are very interesting here: lawyer, accountant, and politician, MLA. What does the lawyer hat say when you're looking at this deal? Was it a give and take? Was it a settlement where everybody's a little bit happy and a little bit upset at the same time? Is that what you saw happen here, or did you see this as a big win for Alberta or Ottawa?
Well, I'd like to see what happens from it. I don't want to prejudge. My purpose of running as an MLA is I want to maximize freedom and prosperity for Albertans. That truly is it. I guess we'll see. But those who are closest to it, again, I spoke with Minister Jean for a period of time, because I wanted to get his insights. He was closer to the drafting, the preparation of the MOU than myself, and I wanted to get his views and insights. And he is quite optimistic. And I guess time will tell whether or not it actually does materialize in a positive way, not only for Alberta, but for the country. But at this juncture, I'd like to see what I think many Albertans are in a wait and see mode. I'd like to see if this does produce freedom and prosperity. I would like to see. I agree. With Nadine, appreciate your concerns about the industrial carbon tax. I do feel that the industrial carbon tax disproportionately hurts Alberta. We don't have the benefit of hydro like some of the other jurisdictions, which is very unfortunate, and it does drive up our costs. And I guess I'm not going to get off on a tangent, but something that really does bother me actually is, from an equalization perspective, Quebec Hydro provides hydropower, which is high cost here. They provide it to Quebecers at below market, and they sandbag their fiscal capacity, increasing their equalization payments. And guess who pays into equalization? Alberta, indirectly, but indirectly, Alberta businesses and workers are subsidizing lower power costs in Quebec. I find that very, very disappointing. Very disappointing. The industrial carbon tax isn't a consumer carbon tax. So that is an important note. And again, there was movement in the right direction by getting rid of that, because that, again, disproportionately hurt Albertans. The industrial carbon tax is something that Alberta has control on how it is applied. And it's important to understand that Alberta has had a form of an industrial carbon tax long before Trudeau, decades before Trudeau, has had a form of an industrial carbon tax. So I'd like to again see how this carbon tax is applied. Is it applied in a way that doesn't put Alberta at a competitive disadvantage? Because Nadine, you raise a good point. I don't want to see, this is a competitive advantage. We need as many, I'll be honest, from my own perspective, I'd like there to be no industrial carbon tax at all. Because I don't want to see one of our great economic competitive advantages put at a disadvantage vis-a-vis other jurisdictions. Now, I've heard that some of the oil and gas producers are okay with the industrial carbon tax and even support it. So again, I guess we'll see how things evolve. I'd like to see how this is designed, and time will tell here, but I certainly don't want to see our natural resources put at a competitive disadvantage vis-a-vis other jurisdictions, because we need as much of that as possible, not only in Alberta, but for the country as a whole. So we'll see how it evolves.
Okay, and we've had some people do the calculations on the back of the napkin, because we don't know what the cost of a pipeline through BC is going to be yet. Per barrel, First Nations, what do they want, what does BC want, etc. But the first calculations on the back of the napkin, because of carbon capture, industrial carbon tax, etc., we're going to have the most expensive oil if it does reach the West Coast. So we're talking about having market rates here, but we're going to have some of the highest cost oil by the time it reaches that coast, if it does, by 2040. So when you're talking about prosperity, we're not seeing this in 2026 or 2027. In fact, the carbon tax is going to help pay for the carbon capture program of Pathways. Mm-hmm. And the cost per barrel is going to go up because of all of these restrictions and requirements from Ottawa. So, Jason, using your accountant hat, how can we enter a global market with the highest priced product?
Well, I don't know if that is true or not. I guess, again, I'd like to see those calculations. And really, people will vote with their feet either into Alberta or out of Alberta. Certainly over the past 10 plus years, it's been very unfortunate to see the capital leave Alberta and leave Canada. And our prosperity, our per capita GDP, unfortunately has suffered so badly under that. So again, the devil is in the details, absolutely. So from my tax lawyer hat, the devil, we're looking at tax laws. The devil is in the details, but if it does put us at an economic disadvantage vis-a-vis other sources of oil and gas, then yeah, that's not going to change really the trend of capital outflows from Alberta and Canada. My understanding is there's optimism that this will be structured in terms of the details in a way that will attract capital. So we'll see how that goes. Certainly there are some positive changes in the MOU. For example, an emissions cap, which is a de facto production cap. If we became more efficient from emissions on a per barrel basis, but we increase barrels and you have an emissions cap, that actually is a de facto production cap. So we'll see how things evolve. Again, I do have skepticism. I think many Albertans have some skepticism, but there is some positive things here that objectively I can say now are positive. But again, the goalposts were moved in such a bad negative direction. So it is good to see some obvious course corrections, but again, the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see how things evolve.
Okay. And look, what you're doing is you're laying out a bit of a let's wait and see. Let's see where this goes. But I'm going to go to Nadine now because she does do some of these calculations. So Nadine, working with just the MOU, and now let's not try and bring any outside stuff right now, but just the MOU. The MOU says BC needs to be economically and financially happy. First Nations are part owners, so they're cutting into that pie as well. We need to find a private investor who's going to want returns. And we have the carbon capture program that needs to be paid for and to offset the carbon being released out of the earth and stuff like that. With all of these additional costs to this, first, is there an investor in the world that's interested in seeing his pie sliced up so many times with, we don't even know what number yet? And second, how much does this add to the total cost per barrel? Just using it the MOU, the commitments in the MOU itself.
So, I mean, here's some facts on that. So Dr. Jack Mintz has done some of the numbers and published that in his latest financial post. Jack Mintz, is Alberta really getting a pipeline or just being sold a pipe dream? And, he has estimated that this is going to increase the cost per barrel from anywhere from $6 to about $10 US. That does not mean we are competitive. That means that we are lagging behind Latin America. That means we are lagging behind the US. So that is going to be a huge hurdle for any investor who's going to consider coming into Canada to take on a new pipeline or even increasing production. And we're talking about carbon capture. For me, I'm not a fan of government subsidies. And so when we talk about this not being a consumer tax, it is indeed a consumer tax. It's just not direct and it's not out front. It's actually a hidden tax. And a subsidy, which is what's happening with all this carbon capture, if you look at the Pathways Alliance, the only way these are going and they're moving forward, these projects, is because the government is, again, subsidizing them. Where does the subsidy come from? It comes from taxpayers. So when you look at all of this, if this was just a straight up, business arrangement with no subsidies to take into account and the government standing up to back it up, then no, nobody in their right mind would actually invest in this. You're going to go where the environment is more favorable from a regulatory perspective. And that's the other thing that people don't want to talk about here in Canada. Business investment has been leaving. About 30% of it has left in the last 5 years. And a large part of that has nothing to do with the cost. It's everything to do with the cost as a result of government policy and government regulation. It's getting harder and harder and harder for people to do business in Canada. And to say that this is not a consumer tax or a tax on the consumer, that's not completely honest, because anytime you tax a producer, that gets flowed down through to the consumer. And I'm going, the reality here is a subsidy, again, that's another tax that, the taxpayer pays by giving it to a corporation, because carbon capture is not profitable. So the only way that this moves forward is when the government puts their money and their guarantees behind it.
Okay, and that's a fair
Mhm.
critique, really, because when the government has to subsidize it, it's not like the government has profitable businesses. All their money comes from taxpayers.
That's right.
So that's where it is, and it can be called a hidden tax on that level, Jason. Now, what I want to move into next is
Can I just mention one thing? I
please
don't
do.
disagree with many of the comments that Nadine made. I do feel, there is an indirect cost. You're right, when you increase the cost for producers. I will say this though, I have a lot of respect for Jack Mintz. I guess, if he estimates the $6 to $10 cost per barrel, incremental add in terms of production, depending on where the world price is, I don't know how that does factor in. I also know that extraction costs, availability of the oil and gas asset in jurisdictions. In some jurisdictions, it's just more expensive to get to than other jurisdictions. So that would be a factor. There's no question, a factor and a drag. And I am very skeptical, personally, of carbon capture in the sense that absent government involvement, there isn't a free market. Businesses wouldn't do it, and I am troubled by that. But again, I guess we'll see. What investors do in respect to that. But I will say that incremental cost doesn't mean that investment wouldn't be attracted to Alberta, because we have a large amount of an oil and gas asset, and accessing it is easier and less expensive than other jurisdictions. So it is a factor, but it is not the only factor in defining whether or not we're competitive from a global perspective. But one thing it does do in terms of the MOU is it does remove some of the geopolitical uncertainty that I think has really been a curse to this country as a whole. There is less geopolitical uncertainty. It is not completely gone, but there is less. And so I guess I'm looking at this cup half full. I don't think the cup is full. And I agree again with a lot of Nadine's comments, but there is good things in this cup. And I guess time will tell. But the proof will be in the pudding, one way or the other. So I'm on a wait and see perspective here, but appreciate your good comments, Nadine.
Well, as Ted Morton once told me, I'm not very patient. My patience has kind of run out a little bit, and it's time to start seeing the actions, that follow, that we see the results. And unfortunately, by delaying, the 9 demands and then delaying them again. And I think the MOU truly was more of an opportunity to say, hey, we've accomplished something before this AGM. And now what we're saying is wait and see. And I don't think Albertans are in a mood to wait and see any longer. I think it's time that, the governments actually did something that was real, that, allowed them to see direct results instead of just this, push the can down the road a little bit further. So, Jason, look, I do not envy being in your position right now. I know a lot of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes at the UCP, and the reality is I'm free to speak, right? And just unfortunately this morning you happen to be on the other side of that. I know, matter of fact, many of the MLAs feel much the similar sentiments that I do. You're just not free to speak to it in the same way. So, there's congratulations to you, for holding up on your own there this morning. And I'm not, being hard on you per se. I really do want people to understand truly what this MOU is and what it is not, and what the potential consequences are.
I feel pretty free to
And we'll
speak.
give Jason some credit. Jason, you're a pipeline half full type of guy. I get it. And I'm very glad that you're on here. And I just want to make a couple more statements and then one more question to you, because we are coming to the end of the show. Carbon capture, if it was a profitable thing, like you said, private industry would be doing it. We saw in Saskatchewan, the program there, it couldn't spin up. They couldn't capture as much as they wanted to, and there was no market, very small market for the product that they're creating. So a lot of things working against it. And another industry where there was a lot of promise, but time told us over time that it wasn't so great, was the EV vehicles. Okay, so everybody thought EV vehicles was going to be the best thing since sliced bread. And now even the Liberal government's pulling back on that because it's not turning out the way they thought. And I'm getting the same vibes out of carbon capture as I did with EV. We all hope it works great and it does what they say. But when the winter falls and the other issues pop up, it's not so great. So I just want to put that out there. And you certainly can talk to that. But my last question to you is, Danielle Smith came on the show and said, Grey Cup, November 16th, we're going to have an answer. We're either going to be on the major projects list or else. And she actually said that, or else. She didn't say what the or else was. And then the MOU, she started talking about it just before that. And then the MOU came and gone. What I wanted to know from you on this one is, how much time did you have and other MLAs have with the idea of the MOU? Was there a lot of debate and discussion about it? And did you bring in experts like this economic doctor to talk to you about it? Or was it just like, hey guys, this is what we got, AGM's coming, let's get moving on this? What was the tone and what was the environment around the MOU when it came to your desk?
Well, again, I think I've kind of reiterated this. I'm in a wait and see mode. Again, I wanted to get the perspective of Minister Jean, just because, I mean, he lives in Fort McMurray. He's the MLA there. He's the Minister of Energy. And so a lot of the details he would be more familiar with than myself. There's certain areas where I'm more familiar, certainly on tax policy. And in terms of affordability, I might mention that the creation of a new tax bracket is probably, reducing taxes is actually the best affordability measure that a government can make. I truly feel that. And so I guess, again, time will tell. On the where else perspective, I really support Citizen Initiative Act. That, to me, within, kind of my term as MLA, this is my second term, that would be in the top 5 pieces of legislation that we have passed. I really like checks and balances on government. And, I like the voice of the people. And I think the AGM is, again, a check and balance, voice of the people, voice of Albertans.
Okay, so yeah, this is kind of where I'm at with the Citizens Initiative Act and Bill 54. It sounded great, it really did, until we cut that turkey open and found roadblocks. The Section 2.4 is why the APP question's in the court right now, is to determine whether or not it contravenes the Constitution, Sections 1 through 35.1. And because of that, we may not actually be able to get that question forward. We don't know yet. That decision should be coming out in December. They're back in court tomorrow on that. But that was a self-inflicted wound, Jason. I'm not sure if you realize that, but we didn't need to do that. Clarity Act already gave us the roadmap. Alberta, on its own, put a big hurdle in the way. So I'm not sure if Bill 54 did everything we were hoping for. It certainly touched things like no electronic voting machines. You have to be from the riding, ID, etc. Lowering the threshold to 177. Those were all great. But at the same time, there was this massive roadblock that got put in as well, which APP ran into immediately. As soon as they put their question in, Elections Alberta said, all right, I got to kick this to the court because of Section 2.4. He can't determine himself whether or not it will contravene the Constitution. And there's no movement on the at the AGM or by the UCP or the government itself to revoke that particular section, which would open the door to having a referendum.
I've been on record Yeah, I've been on record, I think, more than once that I favor an opportunity for Albertans to have a referendum on Alberta independence. I've been on record for that. I want Albertans to talk about things. I love referendums because it gives the opportunity for sharing of truth. And I appreciate that. And I want Albertans to understand both sides of the coin and make a decision based on what will produce more freedom and prosperity for them, their families, and their children. And that's why I really love the referendum process a lot.
Well, let's get there. Let's get there. Okay. And then I'll probably have you back on as we're making closer steps towards that. The last question I do have for you, sorry, I just checked my notes, was the recall. You are one of the ones where the signatures are being collected right now. So you're one of the 14, and I think Danielle Smith, they filed their paperwork. They're about to start her as well. They have 44 in total, but 14 are already approved for signature, and you're one of those. Do you have any concerns around that? And what are your thoughts about changing the referendum or the recall legislation to limit it only to funding from the riding and canvassing within the riding and not outside pressures or funding?
I like checks and balances, as I just said. I'm not against recall. And in my statement, the first thing I said is this petition will fail.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that
I'm
way.
I'm not worried about it, frankly. But you know what? If 60% in terms of the number of the families and individuals in my constituency sign a petition saying that they don't think I should be an MLA serving them anymore, then I think I probably shouldn't be their MLA anymore. So I'm not really too, I think on the merits, I mean, looking at things in my own constituency that have happened, I'm comfortable with my record, but if the good people of Red Deer ever felt differently and signed a petition saying that they'd like a change, I totally respect that. I like recall. I like checks and balances a lot. I think I really do. So that's why I like the Citizen Initiative Act process. I like checks and balances.
That's probably the lawyer and the accountant in you as well, and then also the constituents yourself. You live there. You want to make sure that checks and balances are there, and yeah, you're not afraid of a recall.
No, I'm not. I like integrity. I don't think you can have unity without integrity. Unity without integrity is fake. There needs to be integrity first. Then you can have true unity, actually.
Well, that's a good way to kind of end this whole segment. Nadine, what are your thoughts about the recall effort? I know a lot of people feel like this is just an NDP push. They're abusing the system. It's going to cost taxpayers, and they're likely not going to be successful. There's some low-hanging fruit according to the NDP, but again, 60% is a very high threshold, and it would be difficult, I think, to get that during a winter. But what are your quick thoughts there? And then we'll wrap up the public portion.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always consequences to actions. And I think just like Thomas Lukasiuk's question, I think, he put that forward without actually having fully thought through the fact that he was indeed putting forward a question that is addressing Alberta independence. So, when people do things like this recall, for example, I think it is a bit of a waste. I'm not a fan of recall because I think when people are elected, they need to be given some time to actually enact the things that they said they were going to do. Now, holding politicians accountable, absolutely. And I think that we need more opportunities to do that. That's one of the roles that I feel that I and Jason, yourself, and Paula have taken on is, calling them out on the things that are not happening that they said that they would do, and or, continually pushing to see that they happen faster. So I'm not a big fan of recall. I'm more of a fan of term limits, because what I think a large number of the problems that we're seeing in government today, and I see Jason nodding his head here, is because, Jason was a tax lawyer, and a successful one at that, and an accountant, right? I mean, you got into public service to do something good, to make change, right? But it was a civic duty. What we're seeing today is people are going to school, they're coming out, they have absolutely no job experience, no real life experience. They're going into politics, and then they make politics a career. And I think that's where we're going wrong. So, much of the discussion around Alberta independence in particular, especially for me, is about getting rid of politics as a career. It's a civic duty, and to steal Bruce Party's, term, we should have an amateur government. Government shouldn't have all this power that they have today to keep continually expanding their powers and costing the taxpayer in more ways than just money. It's costing them in their mental health. It's costing them in their ability to live their lives. Now we're in a position where we're constantly asking for permission of our government rather than, the other way around. So, I'm not a fan, Jason. I do hope, and I have no doubt that you'll continue to have the support of your voters in Red Deer South. And, recall for me doesn't do much. Term limits. Now we want to get serious about stuff. And this one, NDP, if you're going to start rattling the cages on this one, let's start rattling the cages where it's really going to make a difference. And I think term limits is one area of discussion. Now, politicians get it. Let's be really clear. Career politicians are not going to like term limits for the most part, right? Because this is going to hurt them. They're the ones that have made careers out of this. But I think that's really something where maybe a citizens initiative can actually come into play as well. And let's abandon this whole recall. Let's give the politicians that we vote in the time to do what they need to do. But you know what? They get a maximum of 2 terms to do it in. So get in there with your, the horses are ready and the engines are running, and go.
What a wonderful.
And I'm in the middle. Jay, I'll come to you. Jason, I'll come to you in a second. I'm in the middle. I don't think recall because of government policy should be allowed. But if there's corruption, criminal activity, something specifically to the integrity of the individual, then I'd like to see a way to remove them. But for government policy and the way they vote and pass law, that should not be how recalls are used, in my opinion. Jason, do you want to have last word before we jump over to the private side?
Yeah, I was just going to quickly add, what a great way to end this podcast, Nadine. I completely agree with you. I think term limits are a great check and balance. And I agree. I think this could be something that could be the subject of a citizen initiative action, among other things. Maybe it could be part of an Alberta constitution, but what a great way to end. I think that would be great. There's so many great people in Alberta with different talents and abilities, and I think term limits allow the opportunity for people to contribute their own talents and perspectives, but then allow others the opportunity to do the same. So I actually think that it is a very, it's a good idea, and one that I have thought about and actually would love to see happen. And maybe the citizen initiative on that could help bring that about, or other ways. But thank you. Great to be here, by the way.
Hey, great. Yeah, hang on, because we're going to go to the private area for a second, Jason, if you don't mind. But that wouldn't be something that contravenes the Constitution. So the Section 2.4 wouldn't kick in if we tried to do term limits on the provincial government. So maybe there's a win there eventually, Jason. So Nadine and Jason, if you just hold on, we're going to say goodbye to the public, and we're going to jump on to the private side in a moment here with you. But thank you both very much for being on here, having a candid conversation. And Jason, you're one of the brave ones, because many won't come on the show. But you're trying to show exactly why coming on shows and talking to the public is so important. And some of your constituents are in our chat, so they identified themselves, so they are paying attention. And I don't know if you're going to be recalled. I don't think so. It's a high bar, and they're going after a policy, not you personally. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you very much for being on the show today. But hang out, and we'll talk in private in a second, okay?
Sounds great.
Thanks, everybody. Be right there. All right, public, how awesome is that? Okay. He was Nadine isn't easy. Sometimes you should have seen her with Mickey Amory. I thought he was going to pull a security or something. Like, she just went at him pretty hard. But he stood there and he took the questions and gave some answers. He didn't necessarily like them all, but at least they're talking. Okay. There's a lot of other parties that won't even do that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other levels of government that won't even do that. Like our local government, one of the councillors, my councillor, tried to shut down public conversation in council meetings. So I'm glad people like Jason can come on, and I'm glad that people like Nadine can come on with the receipts of the conversation. $6 to $10 US a barrel, that's a lot. Okay, that does make things a little bit more difficult to enter the market, even if we extract it easier and less cost. So there is some profit in there. We'll see. As Jason, the accountant / tax lawyer, said, this is a wait and see, and maybe he is a pipeline half full type of guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, and everyone can go ahead and subscribe, become a supporter of the show. Thank you very much for all of the chats. It was fantastic reading for me when the conversations were going on. Really appreciate your interactions. But yeah, if you want, go ahead, become a supporter, and join us now in locals for our private members area.
And tune in tomorrow, where we're expecting Rob Anderson, Chief of Staff for Danielle Smith, and Rich Sylvester, CEO of Birdie Prosperity Project, to talk a bit more about this MOU, because Rob was part of the negotiations with Ottawa. So maybe you can dig down deeper for us. And certainly there's been some things that popped up since the AGM when it came to independence. And Mitch can give us an update about going to court tomorrow. They're going to court again tomorrow.
Everyone have a fantastic day, and see you tomorrow morning.
Take care of yourself. Love you all very much, and God bless.